I'm thinking I'm starting to have some kind of double vision here, because I'm seeing two HD7770 video cards in front of me. I wonder why. Well, I remember. I'm going to Crossfire these. Excuse me for my bad acting. Hello there, people in YouTube land. This video I'm going to install these graphics cards and benchmark them against one to see if Crossfire is actually worth it and if it's actually worth the money that is spent on these cards. The card here on the left is my existing card. I had this one for about a year now. And this is the card that got in the mail today, which I'm going to install in the system as well. So, and then we're going to run some benchmarks and see how they stack up against each other. So, and that way we know if Crossfire scaling is indeed at least what AMD says it is. I've seen some benchmarks on the web and they do seem to scale pretty well for the price. I mean, these are two 7770 cards and they perform together about equal to a 7950. It's better than a 7870 XT, and well, in terms of video cards, by the way, it's pretty much the power of a GTX 570 to 580 in terms of performance, so a GTX 660 Ti, GTX 670 approximately. So pretty good cards there. We'll just have to see what's actually going to happen. So I'm going to install these cards now, and then we're going to run some benchmarks. Cool. Okay, so as you can see now, this is what the setup looks like, all installed. The insides of my case. Those two cards are looking very, very nice in there. That's the Crossfire bridge. Okay, enough aesthetics. Let's get to the benchmark, shall we? Okay, so I finally finished the benchmarking on the single card and the Crossfire configurations. And I've tested a couple of games here. I've tested Skyrim, Mafia 2, GTA 4, Crysis 1 and 2, Call of Duty Ghosts, and Far Cry 2. Just because those were the games that I had laying around and that are still a valid benchmark in my opinion. So, on all of the games that I've tested, I've actually maxed out all the settings that I could, and these are the results right here. So on Skyrim, on a single HD7770, I got an average frame rate of 49 FPS. It's pretty much an unmodded game, so that's why the frame rate is slightly higher than you would expect maybe. And in the Crossfire configuration, it would stick around 62. I think VSync actually decreased the frame rate here because I think there is more power to it. That's just my opinion. In Mafia 2, I got a 38 frames per second on a single card and a whopping 68 on the Crossfire configuration. That really is the difference between pretty much just okay for playing and downright enjoyable for a game. Because the minimum FPS are not really brought into this chart, but in Mafia 2 the minimum FPS was somewhere around 25, 24-ish. So that was not quite as smooth as you would like. GTA 4 did not run all that well either on the single card on the maxed out settings that it would allow because of the limit for the video memory. So I managed to squeeze out 38 with some pretty severe frame drops. And on the Crossfire configuration I got 67 frames per second. So that was quite a big increase there. And it really made the game a hell of a lot more enjoyable, even though it's just a really, really awful console port. Crysis 2 pretty much almost doubled the frame rate that I got on the single card. And it just shows how Crossfire is actually maturing across the newer games. Not quite as much in Call of Duty Ghost as you see down there, with only 19 FPS on the Crossfire configuration. I think there's just not really a Crossfire profile yet for Call of Duty Ghost because the game is only 3 days old at the time of making this video. I will probably retake this and or at least put down a comment in the video to describe my results at that point when a Crossfire profile comes available. And yeah, Crysis 1 also almost doubled the frame rate, became a hell of a lot more playable, and that game is still gorgeous to look at in my opinion. But that's just me. And last but not least, Far Cry 2, I went from 53 to 82. It's a good increase. So yeah, pretty much 50% increase, somewhere between 50 and 60%. That's not all that bad, really. That's quite a good. That's quite good scaling. I love a lot better than in Skyrim, that's for sure. That game is obviously not really meant for multi-GPU configurations. Probably because that engine is sort of old already. Which also explains a lot for Call of Duty Ghosts, and that engine is ancient. And now they've actually pushed it beyond Battlefield 4 in terms of requirements, while not really delivering the same graphical environments. But that's for Activision to solve, not for us, of course, for us gamers. So let's take another look here at the more synthetic benchmarks. So I got these scores from 3D Mark 11, just regular 3D Mark that came out this year. Had an increase in the Ice Storm benchmark from 117,000 to about 135,000 3D marks, which is a good 30% somewhat increase. Not all that bad. And the CloudGate was pretty much the same story, from 11,000 to 14, almost 15,000. And here on the Firestrike benchmark, which everyone seems to love, this benchmark does show that multi-GPU configuration are a bit better optimized. I think both CloudGate and Ice Storm are not really optimized for multi-GPU configuration because they are more aimed at the more low end of the spectrum. This is more aimed at the high end for multi-GPU configurations, because the score does translate to that, because it's showing a lot more scaling, about 75% over the old score with just one card. And of course, the last synthetic benchmark that actually conducted on these cards is the Heaven benchmark by Unigen. I used Heaven version 3.0, so not the latest one. I used 3.0 because I had that laying around, and I managed to almost double my score with just 17 points to spare. So that really shows how Crossfire does indeed scale well on this particular card, on the 7770. These cards are very cheap second hand, so if you're looking for a bit more performance, for instance you're still running an NVIDIA 8 or 9000 series card, or Radeon 4000 or 3000 even card, you might want to consider upgrading to a configuration that's about pretty much, it's pretty much this level of performance, because these cards are cheap to pick up if you can get them second hand. And yeah, well, that's just really all there is to it. They're cheap, they're very reliable, and they're pretty darn quick, and they don't consume all that much power. I don't know if I've already said that before in this video, but to have two 7770s in terms of power consumption is about equal to having one GTX 460 NVIDIA card or one Radeon 6870, I believe. They're pretty much the same in terms of power, but the Crossfire configuration of the 7770 in performance equals about a 7950 or a GTX 580 from the older generations. So that should give you an idea on how power efficient and both pretty fast this system is. The only drawback to having a Crossfire configuration is micro-stuttering. I've not really experienced any issues with that so far, but it is most definitely an issue for some people. And of course the other side being usually more power consumption, but in this case that's not really the case. So hopefully I've informed you people more about the types of performance you can expect if you're going to Crossfire your HD7770 Radeon graphics cards. And I hope this video was somewhat informative to all of you, and I thank you all for watching.